I'm going to show you how to seam or graft a seam horizontally. This is on my Ada headband. I found this a wicked technique to use, but it can be a little bit hard to get to know what you're up to. So I thought I would stitch a little bit and then take it out. Sometimes you understand lots about what's happening when you see something getting undone. So you can see there in my contrasting colour of mustard, I've got a little row of knits, and I have made those knits with just my needle and thread. So I'm going to take them out, and on the bottom side, so this side here, I have gone inside the centre of a stitch there and come back out the centre of the next one, and on the top side I've taken my needle right underneath the V. So what I'm doing is creating a new row essentially. So if I take this out, and then I'll set myself back up to get started and show you. So see here, this thread's coming underneath that stitch there, and then the same again. So it's a two-step process pretty much. So I've gone back down into the center of the stitch on the bottom side and come out the center of the stitch right next to it, and then I will have gone right underneath the two V's of the stitch on the top. So I'll keep pulling this out so that you can see. And I really like it. It's a cool way to have a seam where you've got a definite right side to the seam. For anything that you need right side to be all neat and tidy. It's great for like any underarm gussets. It's quite a slow process. I don't know if you want to do it for blankets or anything like that you're seaming together. I'm not sure. But it's perfect for the wee Ida headband. So you can see there I'm just reversing all my wee stitches that I've made. All the way back to the end. I've got a little tail here so that I can seam it up. I'm going to show you again with contrasting yarn, and then I'm going to do it once more with the same colour yarn and sew all my ends in just so you can see how good it looks. So I'll take that all the way out, and I'll pause here and let me get my needle all threaded up. So just to thread your needle, all you want to do is pinch that over there, over the eye, pull the eye out, and then push your yarn up through the centre. Let me get reset just so I've got, as I'm kind of chasing the light at the moment, but I'll just pause here and get myself set up again. Okay, so I've got my two cast off edge. My cast off edge is closest to me, and my cast on edge is at the top. You can do it either way around, doesn't really matter. I am doing it this way just because I want to avoid these tails. I want to sew it up with one of these tails properly at the end, but it really doesn't matter which way you go. It might matter on some projects, but definitely not Ida, and not your first couple of projects, so don't get too stressed about which way up. And we're starting with some garter stitch, which is all knit on the sides, which is really good because lots of tutorials I've found have only been on stocking stitch, where it's quite a lot simpler to see. But we're just going to bring our needle from the back on this cast on edge side, or the one that's closest to you. So I want you to come from the back just to the side and bring your yarn through, and you just want to leave a wee tail just so that you can sew that in later. And then getting your other edge, I want you to find the first knit stitch, so that needs to have a loop up and around. There's one there for me. And we're going to come under the V of that. And then just pull that through. Hold your wee tail so you don't pull it all the way through. Then what we're going to do is bring your needle back through this, back into the stitch that you first came in the back of. And then we're going to come out the very next stitch. So you've kind of got two little loops or two legs. Could be confused as another V, but what you've got there is the left leg of this stitch and the right leg of the next stitch. So come through there, and now's where you're going to start to think about tension. So just holding this tail so it doesn't pull all the way through, you just kind of want to match your tension of your knitting, and you can adjust it as you go. It does get a little bit trickier to adjust your tension once you've got a few of them stitched. Now we're just going to repeat the same again. So we're going to go under the V like we did here, but of the next stitch. So in garter stitch, it's a wee bit hard to find, but just wiggle it round. So there's my wee V. I'm going to go all the way under that. Then I'm going to go back into the stitch we come out of before and come out of the next stitch. So remember, that's the left leg of that stitch and this is the right leg of the next. And just start evening it up. You just want these wee stitches to look about the same size and be about the same size as your knitting. Same again, I'm going to go find the next knit stitch. There she is there. You can see it coming up and around. They are quite hard to find when you're first starting to knit or haven't done too much seaming before. But just all this is practice. So there you can see I've made 3 little knit stitches. And I'm just going to repeat the process. I'll cruise along here until I get into my stocking stitch and it's a wee bit easier to see. Okay, that's all my garter stitches done. Here comes the first one on the stocking stitch. So you can see there that wee column of stitches. I'm just going to grab underneath that one. And the same principle applies. So back in there. Looking good. So on the top side you always go underneath a stitch completely. On the bottom side you can see nicely here, there's the left leg of that stitch and the right leg of the next. You want to go under the left and the right. So go in under the left and come out under the right. And just work your way along. I'll pause here and finish with this contrast colour and then I'll show you at the end. Okay, I'm about to finish off and you can see that even though that's contrasting, it's quite a nice little even seam. And sometimes the starting and the finishing is always the worst. So I have come out of the stitch on the bottom here and I'm going to go and get this very last stitch which kind of sneaks around the corner on this side. We're just going to get those two. And remember, when you seam it up with your same colour yarn, matching yarn, it looks lots tidier. and then I'm just going to come in of that leg of this stitch and out this one. There we go. Now if I was to finish up sewing up my yarn, I'd just come back to the side, sneak that in there without snagging the yarn. I'll just try and hold those threads out of the way. So I just come up like that, and then just get any wee piece of yarn, pull through a wee smaller loop, get that tail out of there, and just go once, twice, tighten that down, and then sew your ends in as normal. Do the same for the other side. I'm going to undo this now, and I will come back and show you when I've grafted it with the same matching yarn. So I leave my ends quite long, sort of double the length. That's both my tail from my cast on and my cast off. Just got them both there and wasn't sure which one I wanted to use. But yeah, I'll come back and show you once I've grafted with the same colour. Okay, I'm all seamed up with my matching yarn, and there we go. So you've got a definite seam ridge on the inside, and you've just created a new row of stitches with your needle and thread along there. I'm going to give this, sew my ends in, and I'll give it a steam, and it'll be good to go.